world, and the workforce especially, is in crisis. It would take the average worker 5 career lifetimes to make what a CEO makes in just 1 year. 5 career lifetimes. We need to reshape what leadership looks like.
Do you think millennials believe in purpose at their jobs anymore?
I'm not going to accept a check from someone who is the antithesis of my values. That money is not worth anything to me.
Millennials have the least amount of wealth in the history of any generation right now.
What millennials need to do is...
Danielle Roberts.
Hello, Kassidy.
You said something that I think resonates with a lot of people, millennials, people in the workforce. No job can fill the void of a half-lived life. What do we do about the tension between making money and living the life that we've always dreamed of?
That's a great question. And I think we have to take it back to childhood and the question that many of us are asked, which is, what do you want to be when you grow up? So from an early age, we center our careers as our identities and our single source of purpose in this life. And I think as we get older, our entire adult life is growing into a version of ourselves that sheds that our career is our identity, and understanding who we want to become in the process of pursuing our careers, what our values are, and the impact that we want to make on this world, and using that to make money. So I don't think it's about the specific job title or how much money you make. I think it's the amount of purpose that you put into your work and the impact that you want to leave on the world after you die.
What do you say to people that hear you say that and are like, that feels too big? What do you mean, what's my purpose?
Yeah.
What do you mean I should be doing something different?
I don't think you find your purpose. I think you embody your purpose by thinking about how you want to feel every single day. One of the things that I did early on into my business was, and one of my coaches helped me with this. They said, if you gave me access to your bank account, your calendar, and your social media feeds, what would that tell me about what you value? And at the time, I would have told you that I valued peace and curiosity, but my bank account would have told you that I cared about stacking my calendar full of stuff, going out and drinking on the weekends, and I didn't have any room for peace and curiosity. So finding my purpose in that respect became about, how do I create space for more peace and curiosity in my life today so I can embody my purpose every single day? So purpose isn't necessarily a single job title. It's how do you want to feel in the pursuit of achieving your goals?
I've noticed in the world, and this is going to bring it down to a really simplified level. Mm-hmm. There are 2 kinds of people. There are people that do, and there are people that don't do.
Yeah.
And that's not true for everything all the time, but there are people that do seek to discover their true purpose, and there are people that don't.
Yeah.
Why do you think that is?
I think it's the tools that people are given early on. I think it's the resources that they have access to. And I think it's about wanting to just like have the audacity to make your life better. I have always been a doer. It feels like almost innate in my soul. And I've kind of made my way back to spirituality in business in terms of like, I think that I asked whoever to put me here on this earth for a specific reason, to learn specific lessons. So I'm really inspired by following the breadcrumbs and piecing them together, because we are going to die one day, whether we are a doer or we are somebody who just kind of settles for the status quo. We all have that same destination. And I think our connection with death is honestly what separates the people who do more versus the people that settle for more of the status quo. If I died tomorrow, I want to live my life in a way that I would be proud of the work that I've done and the person that I am. And that is purpose to me. Like, that is the truth of like, tomorrow, if I died, I'd be like, you know what? It's been a good life. It's been a hard life. It's been challenging to get here, but I worked hard. I did well. I helped people, and I learned a lot about myself through the process. So that's a long way of answering the question of like being willing to reflect and hold yourself accountable. And people who don't want to do that, like that's okay if you want to stay in your comfort zone, but that's not going to stop me from doing what I came here to do.
And so let's say everybody's aware of death and they understand that life is short and we only have so much time on this planet.
Yeah.
What is it that stops people from then going after everything that they want to achieve?
Fear. Fear. I mean, we are primal beings. Our nervous systems will kick into fight or flight when there is discomfort or unknown. And we have to get into touch with exactly what that fear is. What is really specifically, what is the fear? It can be fear of failure, fear of success, fear of rejection. But you have to get like intimate with what that is. I would have told you fear of failure for a long time. I was a perfectionist. I was a people pleaser. I just didn't want to disappoint people. I was a parentified child growing up. And I've come to realize that I actually think it's more about like fear of success for me. Like when I accomplish the goals that I intend to accomplish, I have to become a different person. And there's a fear of letting go of your old life and what that means. And there's a lot of unknown in who you're becoming. So I think it all boils down to fear.
I think there's 3 fears that I've noticed through my own journey. And fear of success, like you said, and we can talk more about that. So there's the fear of success. There's the fear of other people's opinions and judgments.
Yep.
And then there's the fear of letting go of your old identity. I think you could call it fear of success is the big one, but actually I think people really care about what other people think about them.
Yeah.
And they cannot fathom the judgment and the words and the conversations about saying, hey, I want to go do this thing, and then receiving that.
Yeah.
But that's also the shedding of the old identity.
Yeah.
I think it comes down ultimately to that.
Yeah.
And so talk to me about what it means to face your fear of shedding your old identity to become this new version of yourself.
Yeah. Ooh, I have become multiple versions of myself since I've probably been like 6 or 7 different versions of myself since my teenage years. And I think it comes down to understanding what you've been taught about, like the societal conditioning, whether that is from school, parents, religion, whatever. What are the belief systems that you hold about yourself? And are they true? Do you want to hold on to them any longer? And then taking action that aligns with whatever that answer is. So I grew up in a Roman Catholic household. And for example, I heard what a lot of other LGBTQ plus people do, that being gay is a sin, sinners go to hell. And childhood Danielle was like, well, I can't possibly be gay because I am good. Like, I am good. I believed that what my parents were exposing me to was true. And as I grew up and I learned more about the world, I started to see myself reflected in things that weren't taught to me. And I had to challenge my own belief system of, well, is this true about me that I am not gay? And turns out the answer was no. Like, I'm queer and, happy Pride Month. So I think it's about examining what we've been taught, how we've been taught it, and if we want to hold on to that belief. And the fear of what other people think is a big one. You're gonna lose people along the way. You're not gonna be for everybody. I am not for everybody. I put out some, disruptive content in terms of the workforce and how we need to be thinking about success, which is rooted in, what we've all been taught to chase growing up. But I value the opinions of people who are in the arena of fighting for what they want. Somebody who has 4 followers on Instagram that just wants to be a troll in comments is not somebody whose opinion that I value or the energy that I'm going to exchange with them. If I'm not pissing some people off, I'm not doing my job right, because my job is to try and change people's minds, and that is gonna cause an identity level shift for them.
How can someone recognize when they need to question what they've been taught? Like, what does it feel like for someone to be like, oh, I do believe this, but why do I believe that?
Yeah.
Like, how does that start showing up for people?
For me, it showed up as burnout. I was chasing corporate success, trying to climb a ladder, and I achieved every single goal that I wanted to. And on the exterior, it seems like everything was together. And inside, I was like hollow and empty. And nobody ever asked if I was okay because Danielle was the one who was like, always okay. So it started with like a feeling of like my intuition of like, this isn't quite right. I don't know what the answer is, but I know I need to like maybe start reflecting. Biggest thing that changed my life was, I started going to therapy. I'm lucky to have access to go to therapy. And I started journaling a lot and dumping my chaos of a brain onto paper and looking for the themes of like how I was talking about myself, how I was talking about the world around me, what I was aspiring to be on the paper. And I said like, okay, well, what do I do with all of this information? And I started taking tiny steps, incremental steps toward change that have compounded over the years. But I think curiosity about yourself is the first step. Read books, journal through, figure out what your values are, and take an action that more embodies the qualities that you say you want to have.
Yeah. Same story for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was stuck. I was smart enough to be like, I'm stuck. But it actually took a couple hard conversations, more than a couple of hard conversations. And the world was like basically showing me in every single way that it could that I needed to stop.
Yeah.
And I needed to go get help and figure things out differently.
Yeah.
And so I got therapy. And the reason I was successful was I was like, just whatever you tell me to do, I'm going to do. And I'm going to tell you everything that's in my brain. And like, I'm not going to hold back because I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. And I want to level up.
Yeah.
Honestly, part of it was like, I want to level up. Like I want to feel better, but I want to level up. And then the journaling, I did a specific kind of journaling that was unlocked a lot. Mm-hmm. And then reading, but not just reading, studying.
Yes.
And actually reading, not audiobooks.
Yep.
Because that's a distraction. I think audiobooks are a distraction, and we're pummeling our ears with distractions all day at, 4X podcasts.
Yes.
Right.
Just consume all of the information that you possibly can.
Yeah. But you're not sitting with yourself.
Yeah.
You're not sitting with yourself.
And I think, our society is engineered that way for that massive distraction, because people who are very self-aware and emotionally intelligent are powerful people to disrupt the system and everything that we have been taught. And honestly, you have to get up to a point that you are sick of your own bullshit. And I was sick of just changing shape in different corporate containers and thinking that a job title or another company was going to solve all of my problems. I was playing a huge part in my own suffering in those scenarios by not setting boundaries, by not advocating for myself, by not even believing that I could. And once I kind of like hit rock bottom and like my mom died, I had to look at my entire life and say like, do I want to be remembered as the person who just worked 70 hours a week and didn't like actually try and live my life? Like, what am I doing here? So I had to get really honest with myself about how I was playing a part in my own problems, in my own suffering, so I could change, because we do have power to change things. It's not going to be overnight, but these small steps stack over time. The
hard part about my transformation, and I think for a lot of people, is you hear, oh, it doesn't happen overnight. But usually when you're in these situations, like I had massive anxiety. Mm-hmm. And so your anxiety is driving your actions. And so your anxiety is also causing more anxiety about why am I not changing fast enough?
Yeah.
And so that was hard for me. And so what you've just described, you mentioned people pleaser. Mm-hmm. And we hear that term, but tell me from your perspective, what a people pleaser actually is and why it actually is harmful or can be a really negative thing.
Yeah. People pleasing is putting other people before yourself, always, often to the detriment of your own well-being. It's saying yes to every single opportunity that comes your way, yes to every single ask that your parents or your family throws at you. And usually it involves not anything reciprocal. And it leads to burnout. So from my perspective, it's not really knowing what to do with yourself. And it's easy to fill your time with what everyone else is asking you to do. And then doing it to the detriment of your own mental, emotional, physical well-being. An example is a couple years ago, it'll be 2 years this month, I stopped drinking. And old people-pleasing Danielle would be like, I will say yes to all of the plans of going out to the bars and showing face, every single work event. I will be there. I will answer every call. I will be the person who shows up because I care about helping people, is the story that I would tell. And I was anxious. I wasn't sleeping well. I wasn't moving my body during the week. I was a shell of a human being. And when I stopped saying yes to some of those things, I was still helping people and I felt better. And I just stopped doing what other people expected of me, and it was okay. Some people fell off, but it was okay. So I think people pleasers have a really hard time saying no because they are scared of what the reaction is going to be. But when you say no and you have those boundaries, it teaches people how to treat you, and it shows that you have respect for yourself.
Yeah, and then you build up resentment on the inside for these people that you said yes to.
Yeah.
Because it feels like they're doing something to you because they invited you to this thing that you said yes to, but you don't really want to go to. So you're not being honest with yourself and you're creating resentment for other people.
Yep.
The other way that I've seen people pleasing show up is you are changing how you act in different groups or with different people. You might be changing the likes or things that you enjoy or don't enjoy or agree with or don't agree with. Maybe you're left or right leaning and you're a group of the opposite spectrum and you're starting to agree with these things that they're saying just because you want to be part of the conversation. Yeah. And so now you're sacrificing your morals and your values just to try to be liked, even though you may not even like these people.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm a huge energy person, and you can feel the energy of the people around you. And you can feel when people want transactional relationships. You can feel when people actually give a damn about who you are as a person. And that's really important, not just in business or career, but in life. When you know what your values are, you can surround yourself with people who have similar morals and values. Because what is the quote that you're like the product of the 5 people that you spend the most time around? What are they? How are they spending their time? How are they speaking? What information are they consuming? If it's not, like if you feel that energetic resistance in your body, like that is your body telling you something that you need to make a change.
Yeah. I don't think I've ever said, oh, well, my gut was wrong on that one.
Right. Yeah.
Right. It's like your body is telling you. That's something I picked up from therapy, that my therapist, and now I have another coach, very in tune with my body and paying very close attention. And it's not an escape mechanism. It's not an excuse to not do something, because sometimes your body's telling you you should do this. Why? But question why you're feeling the resistance.
Yeah.
And is it because you just need to get out and leave, or is it because this is growing you in the right way?
Right. Yeah. The discomfort aspects. There is an atlas in our gut. I fully believe that. And it takes some training, honestly, to start to listen to it, to tune out some of the distractions and sit with yourself, even if it's for 5 minutes, breathing. And because when anything happens, your gut will tell you something, and in a millisecond later, your brain's going to catch up, be like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Well, we can't do that. We can't put a boundary in place with this person. We can't go after that goal. We can't leave that relationship. We can't do any of that. But is that true?
So how do we, because this is something that I am actively, and I'm getting towards, I think, the other end of the spectrum of not just accepting every opportunity, and I'm focusing so much on myself. How do you retrain yourself to not just say yes to everything, especially when there's money involved?
Yeah.
Especially when there's new relationships and exciting things. Like, how does someone actually say no when they're staring at a check?
That's a very hard question. When you're building a business, so it all comes back to values, right? I'm not going to accept a check from someone who is the antithesis of my values. That money is not worth anything to me. And I always want to operate in integrity. That said, if you chase any type of money long enough, I imagine it's going to wind up somewhere weird. So I think especially when you're first building your business, there is something to be said for accepting opportunities and following the breadcrumbs and seeing where you wind up. I have a philosophy that I've been using lately, which is that I'm going to check every door handle and climb through every window until I get to where I intend to go. That doesn't mean I'm going to work with people that don't align with my values or aren't in integrity. It means that I am going to be so committed to working hard for these next couple of months, years, so I can take that break later. So I think there is a trade-off in the beginning of saying yes to opportunities to also learn what you like and dislike. Because in your head, it's gonna be like, well, I can't say yes to that because I'm not experienced enough or I don't know enough about this person. And then you start talking to that person and you're like, oh, everything that I thought was wrong. Or, vice versa, someone that you thought that was like a dream to work with winds up being like, oh, you are not at all like I thought. So I think in the beginning, you have to say yes to a lot of opportunities to figure out what you like and dislike, what is going to feel aligned for you as a human as you grow your business, and then take that next best step after that.
You've said that we're experiencing the decay of purpose itself.
Yeah.
What do you mean by that?
Loaded question. So the world and the workforce especially is in crisis. We spend at least 90,000 hours of our lives at work. And we've seen a slow and steady decay over time with companies who only care about profit every single quarter at all costs. And usually those costs are at the expense of their human employees, layoffs, declining wages or wages that aren't keeping up with cost of living and inflation. And young workers rank meaningful work just as important as their paycheck. But more and more, they're asking, well, if I'm spending all of this time at work, and if work at the baseline is supposed to provide for my basic human needs, and it's not even doing that, how can I expect it to give me a sense of purpose in this world? Because I'm just struggling to get by. So I think we need to have candid conversations in the world of work to restore purpose and to create space for those in traditional corporate cultures or the businesses that we build, to be curious about the people who we work for and who work for us, to create opportunities for more connectedness and to co-create workplaces rather than dictating culture from the top down. So I think we don't have purposes being stripped from our work. And I think to find our way back to feeling good and making people actually want to show up excited to do a good job, we need to figure out what purpose means to the individual.
What are some of the candid conversations that need to happen?
Less than half of leaders in management positions have received any training, yet they account for a 70% variance in employee engagement. So the candid conversation that we need to have is we need to train our leaders and we need to reshape what leadership looks like. It is not a straight white man in a suit. It is not. It is someone who looks like me. It's someone who looks like you. It is someone who looks like any of the guests that you've interviewed so far, who are paving a new way to say that we don't have to work this way. It starts with building emotional intelligence into leadership development and skills training. And a key component of that is active listening and reflecting back what you just heard so we can create space for psychological safety and trust. When you have employees who trust you, they are going to show up and do a good job. Because when you trust them, when you give them autonomy and flexibility to work in a way that feels good for them, why wouldn't they want to stay? Why wouldn't they be looking for the next job opportunity? We need to take care of our people and make our cultures human first instead of profit first, because purpose-driven companies are 23% more profitable. You have less turnover costs. You have less people who are taking sick days. Health insurance costs are lower. It's a win-win for everybody. So if we just slowed down a little bit and stopped with the constant hustle, more constantly, I think we'd all be a lot better off.
Are there companies that you're seeing that are doing it right with their employees?
There are. I work with a lot of small and medium-sized businesses that are doing it really, really well. And there's one company that I really love. Her name is Kristen Hadid, and she has a very small company. She has, I believe, 4 or 5 employees and then other contractors that they outsource. But her entire system is, I'm building a comm company. It's a 7-figure business, and everyone has worked there. Like, they have no turnover and everyone's excited to work. And when you talk to anybody who works there or see them on the screen, you can't fake that happiness. They are not masking of like, oh, I'm so happy to be here. You can feel that they are super happy. There is a TEDx that I watched, and the name of the CEO is escaping me, but he's CEO of Chobani.
Mm-hmm.
And he talked about like an anti-CEO playbook about how we need to really give employees a stake in the company and make them driven to do a better job, because when the company performs well, everyone performs well. And when people perform well, they invest in small local business. They invest back into the economy. When our economy does well, we do better in the world.
Do you think millennials believe in purpose at their jobs anymore?
Every single client that I work with, one of their biggest pain points is that I want to feel more fulfilled at work. I want to feel like what I do matters. So there is that desire, but we're not seeing that opportunity when they're showing up at work.
Millennials have the least amount of wealth of any generation in the history of the United States or the history of the world.
Yeah.
Millennials have the least amount of wealth in the history of any generation right now. I believe it's 10% of all wealth is millennials, compared to boomers had 40% of all wealth at the same point, you know, the average age being, 35 for millennials. When boomers were 35, they had like 40% of the total wealth in the economy. And millennials went through the 2008 crisis. They went through 9/11. They went through the wars. And then now we're COVID, and like
we were fighting for our lives.
And then the wage gap. The wage gap. So this is the crux of everything, I think, in the economy, in society, in the workforce right now, that is preventing anyone from getting ahead, is the gap in wages compared to the cost of living, especially around housing. And when, I don't know what the total number is, but when leadership and executives are making more than they ever have, and wages have either stayed the same or barely risen, nowhere near inflation, and cost of living has gone up, everyone has gotten poorer unless you hustle, unless you grind, unless you get promoted, unless you change jobs, unless you do this. And that's not for everybody anyways. So what are millennials, what are Gen Z supposed to do, or what are they doing to get ahead?
First of all, that model is completely unsustainable. Like, I think we're very close to a breaking point of asking people to make their entire lives about work and having no rest or recovery time. When we don't make more money, people aren't having kids. They're not able to spend. Like, it does the world and our entire nation a great disservice by not just like listening to what we want and need. It's not, and like, we're not asking for a lot. We're just saying like, hey, can our dollar go as far as our parents did? I would like to work one job so I can afford it to just live and maybe have some fun along the way. I'm not asking for a whole lot. And the stat is, and I use this in my TEDx, it would take the average worker 5 career lifetimes to make what a CEO makes in just 1 year. 5 career lifetimes. And our lifetime that we work is, retirement age is going to be over 70 for us. So
50 years.
That's crazy. 5 career, that's 350 years that it would take me to make what a CEO makes in just 1 year. We have to normalize talking about how not normal this is. So to answer your question, I think what millennials need to do is get really clear on what their values are, find companies that align with their values so they feel good about the money that they are making there, and start your own companies now, because that's going to be a quicker path to revenue. It's going to be able to help you invest in your communities and the causes that you care about. If you want to hire more employees in your company, access to more jobs. So we need to create the opportunities that we didn't get and that society didn't give us. I think that we millennials, and speaking candidly, we are in for we're going to be on the struggle bus for a while. And I think we need to think about what world do we want to leave for the people behind us. There's a quote, it's like, I want to plant seeds that will grow into trees that I will never sit under. I need to be okay with that. Like, I fully intend to accomplish every single financial goal that I have for myself. And I know that there will also be people who like struggle. So I feel like very compelled to make as much money as I can to reinvest and help the people who don't have access to the same thing.
It's one of the reasons that I started the podcast is to give access to this type of information and hopefully reach people's ears and hearts. Yeah. Not everybody's meant to be an entrepreneur. Not everybody should be or could be, but there's a lot more of us out there that just need the push, need the understanding, need the people like you speaking in their ear so that they can go create something for themselves. Yeah. And I think Gen Z is doing a lot of entrepreneurship, right? I think they saw early on the millennials and the boomers, and they're like, I don't want any part of that. Yeah. And maybe they're going to all want to be content creators, but maybe not. Maybe they all create businesses and value in the world. Yeah.
I mean, money is an infinite resource, right? We attribute a lot of baggage to it. And I grew up in a very blue collar household. We didn't have money growing up. Like, we used to eat, we called it like jumbutt is what my parents called it. It was sliced up potatoes, hot dogs, and onions. And it was like a $5 meal that fed all of us. So like, we have to remember that money is like an infinite resource. There are a bunch of different ways that we can get creative and make money. And if we need to, if we aren't fit for entrepreneurship and we need to take traditional employment, we have technological tools that can make us more productive at work and then invest into our time, into other things that we care about. You can always make more money, but you can't make more time, right? Time is like the most precious commodity. So what is going to be the greatest return on your time invested? A lot of people want to, be content creators or influencers, like whatever the word is that they want to use. But it's like, okay, what do I want to build though? Like, what is the legacy that I want to leave through my content, through my influence? And where is smart for me to invest my time to build that now?
We'll never receive more than we think that we're worth. Mm-hmm. And so we need to go work on our own self-worth and self-value if we want to make more money. Yeah. If you are willing to accept low wage, low this, low that, it's because you're not valuing yourself. Yeah. And I'm just being honest.
I agree.
Like you may grow into more and you may grow into more, but that's sort of the journey. It's a self-worth journey of valuing yourself more. And sometimes that means that you also have to do a little bit of work on yourself to be able to go do that.
That's work worth doing though. Like, you can work and build somebody else's dreams and bitch about it. Or you can say like, what are the problems here and how can I play a part in help solving them? That second part, that makes me feel much more empowered and energized. Like, hell yeah. Like, yes, I can do that. Whereas the former is like, fine, I guess I'll get up and go about another day. And like, this is your one wild and precious life. How do you want to spend it?
That's right. That's right. And I don't want to spend it in the mundane, in the complaining, and building someone else's dream. Yeah.
And I was that person for a while. Like, I didn't have healthy coping mechanisms. I had crazy anxiety. I still get some anxiety, but like, I'm much more regulated than I used to be. You have to be willing to go on that journey. And some awful, painful stuff is probably going to come bubbling to the surface. But once you like deal with that and face it and survive it and realize like your like mess is almost your message, then you can help others. And that's what I'm here to do. I just like want to help.
Yeah. And so take me back to when your mom passed away. How old were you?
I was 23.
23.
Yeah.
That seems like a really hard age to have to lose your mom.
Yeah.
And so what happened? Where you were working? What was going on in your life?
Yeah. So I graduated college in 2011. So like on the heels of that 2008 recession. And I had a job lined up right after college. And I was very happy to even have a job when many of my peers didn't. And I was working in the field that aligned with my degree, which was advertising. And ad agency life is very well known for long hours. 60 to 70 hour weeks. You work hard, you play hard with your coworkers. There are often, like, my agency had a bar in there. So 5 o'clock, you pour yourself a beer from the keg and you continue working late into the evenings. And it was my first job out of college. Like I said, I was making $28K a year. $28K.
Wow.
Brutal.
That wasn't a lot of money back then either. Like
No,
28K was not a lot of money
and
back
guess
then.
what? I tried to negotiate to my first job and they said no. Like, I asked for 30K and they offered 28K and they were like, no, sorry. And I was like, all right, well, I'm going to take it. Like, I have no other choice.
Yeah, back then.
But I wanted to work hard. I was proud of the work that I did. I was always a high achiever. Like, growing up, that's like what I poured myself into to get positive validation from the people in my life. So I was like, okay, Danielle works hard. It equals love and acceptance. So Danielle will always work hard. So worked hard. Chose a career that it was all about the hard work and the networking and like that kind of stuff. My mom had first gotten cancer when I was really young. I think she first got diagnosed when I was like 11 or 12. She beat it and was in remission. And she texted me one morning when I was getting ready for work. And the text was really jumbled. And it said, I don't feel right. And immediately I texted my boss. I raced home and I brought her to the hospital. And they told her that she had cancer again. And it was like, oh my God. And I wasn't making money. And I had, I think, 7 PTO days. So I was able to take those PTO days, but then because I couldn't afford FMLA, I had to work from the hospital waiting room. I had to work by her bedside. I even had to work after, like, I spent time at hospice with her. And I was back at my desk after 3 days of bereavement leave because we need to make grieving productive in our society. Like, it's not enough time to plan a funeral, let alone grieve the loss of the person who raised you. And I was looking around at people hustling like normal. And I was like, what am I doing? I sacrificed dinners to work because my clients needed me. And my clients were casinos. Like, how bad did they need me? I didn't answer her phone calls because I was out to networking happy hours. And again, to circle back to like death, that we're going to die, that was the starting point in like the decade-long unfolding that came after that of like, what do I want work to look like and how do I want to live? And if I died when I'm 50, which my mom did, what do I want to do? What do I want to do with that time? So that was really like the kickoff point that changed everything and made me question everything that I thought that I knew about myself.
So how long after she died did you go back to work?
3 days of bereavement leave.
Wow.
Yeah.
Not enough.
No.
Yeah. We had a good friend pass away, and it was like a 3-year process. It was, really, really tough to watch. She was early 20s, and that was the same thing. It kicked off. It wasn't my mom, but it kicked off this questioning of everything around me.
Yeah.
And realizing like I'm at this job with people that I don't really like for the majority of my day.
Mm-hmm.
I'm here for the majority of my day with people that I don't like. And my relationship at home is not the best that it could be because of everything else going on in my life. And that really hurt,
Yeah.
So what else changed after your mom passed and you noticed everything?
Yeah. So I'm sorry for your loss, by the way. And I had to move back home to help my dad out. And then I changed jobs and I said, I'm going to find something that has like more work-life balance. And I found a perfect on paper job in higher education. I worked in a union. I had a healthy salary. It helped me buy my first house before I was 25. I just like stashed my cash and like made it happen. And I was like their first ever social media hire. So I worked in advertising and social media, and then I was their first ever social media hire. And I was like running shit at that college. I was not only running all of their social media platforms, but I was training stakeholders within the organization about how to effectively use that for their divisions and departments. And very different set up organizationally than an agency. A lot more like bureaucratic, a lot more red tape, and people who serve like veteran careers there. Like once you get there, you stay. You have job security if you're in the union. And I mean, I'm not very corporate looking. So I was there for over 5 years, but I quickly like realized that I was gonna reach a cap very quickly. But I still worked hard, and I like got awards for excellence in student communication. I attended conferences on behalf of the university, and I hustled my way toward burnout. Because I was their first ever social media hire. I was also the only person in my department. So I was the go-to person on nights, weekends, even on my honeymoon for work emergencies. And they treated me not great, despite me showing up for them constantly. So I had to, again, ask myself, what am I doing? And am I crazy for wanting to give up this perfect on paper job to reach new heights and say, like, I'm not going to tolerate being treated this way. And I made a decision to leave. And I changed shape again. And I went to ed tech, so student to adult career changers. And that was 2019. So right after that was 2020. Mm-hmm. And the world got crazy. And again, I was thankful to have a job. A lot of people getting laid off and let go. And I was working for a company that was building an online learning platform. So we were busier than ever. So I threw myself into work again. And then I decided, you know what? Things aren't working. There's a lot crazy at home. I'm people pleasing. I'm putting everyone else before me. And I'm feeling like I can't even hear myself think, feeling like a shell of a human being. And I need to create physical distance to actually hear that and prioritize myself for probably the first time in my life. And a month after I moved 1,000 miles away, I got laid off from that company. So I found myself in a new location with no paycheck, no community or support system. And I said, I cannot keep doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. I can't just apply to another company because I am the consistent issue across all of my experiences now. Like, work is not going to check every single box for me. I've been trying to make work check every box, and I don't think that's the answer anymore. So that's when I started my business. And it has slowly evolved since then.
How can you recognize when you're in a toxic relationship with your employer?
I think that there's a couple of different angles that I can take that question. So toxic relationship with your employer could mean like you have toxic leadership and you have to like bend to them because you need to collect your paycheck. And it's also toxic relationship of like me of playing a role in that, like that toxic dynamic.
Because you, in your story about yourself, in your story about yourself, you said you didn't want to be treated that way anymore.
Yeah.
And so you left. And that was part of the reason that you left, maybe more than once.
Yeah.
In my history, similar experience, I allowed employers to treat me a certain way after showing up so much.
Yeah.
And weekends and emergencies, and we have very similar stories. It was a not quite government, but bureaucratic, red tape, career lifer people at the company. I didn't realize how much I didn't fit in. I just thought that was normal.
Yeah.
And I was just the person that was a high achiever, and just people decided not to.
Yeah.
But looking back, the way that they treated me, it was very toxic in terms of how they valued me or didn't value me and shaping my identity at the company.
Yeah. So I would say to that, like toxic relationship with work is, are they blurring the boundaries between your work and your life? Are they not respecting your time outside of work? Are they not listening to you when you voice your needs? Or are they even creating the space for you to voice your needs? So if none of those things are happening, you are probably in a toxic relationship with your employer. If you are delivering results for them constantly and they are not valuing your work, whether that's on an annual basis or whatever frequency, you're likely in a toxic relationship with your employer. If they don't create any space for you to be yourself and they just want to mold you into whatever fits the company culture, for example, interview, it's like, oh, we want to make sure you're a culture fit, right? Like we should be looking for culture ads. We should be looking for a diversity of thought when we bring new people in. So if you just want people who are going to say yes and not question processes and just like maintain status quo, that's not necessarily going to be the most healthy environment. That said, there are a lot of those organizations out there.
Yeah, and a lot of them just don't know better too.
Yeah.
Like, especially like you said, leaders aren't trained.
Yeah.
And they are just doing what their leader told them or what HR is telling them to do.
Yeah.
And then it's an HR ran
Yeah.
culture, which is not,
Yeah.
not a fun culture to be in.
No. And I think we have a really interesting opportunity right now in the age of AI. Gallup released their workplace report, global engagement report recently, and employee engagement fell yet again, both in the US and globally. And the leading cause of that is managers. So one of their takeaways is that we need to make managers more like coaches and guides for their employees. At the same time, Sam Altman said that most young people are turning to ChatGPT to make major life decisions. So I think that there's a lot of opportunity in the workplace for individual contributors and employees to use AI to healthily advocate for themselves and learn how to communicate in a solutions-oriented way to get more of what they want. And for people in management positions, if they are self-reflective enough to know that they need work, to use AI to learn how to check in with their employees on a more consistent basis and gather what their employees are saying to make changes on their team or within the organization.
Managers are put in a tough position though, because they're trying to do what their leadership is telling them to do, but they actually are supposed to be serving their employees to remove roadblocks, to coach them, to make sure that they're doing okay, and also that the work's getting done. But then they have to balance the needs of leadership. And so what if they're feeling all this same stuff of like greater purpose and toxic relationship and they're not able, like, what do they do?
Yeah, well, I think we have to remember that everyone in the workplace is on the same team. Like there's a very like an us versus them mentality in the workplace of individual contributors with managers and then C-suite, and everyone being asked to do more with less. But when we advocate for ourselves, for our teams, and we can frame these things in a solution-oriented way, it is the same goals across the organization. When your people feel heard, they stay. You have less turnover costs. Leadership gets what they want. People perform better when they feel cared for. So I think it's, we have to remember that we are all on the same team. And we live in a capitalist society. We are very individualistic. And it's, performance management or performance review season is like the worst. It's like, you went above and beyond, congratulations, you get a 3. We expected you to go above and beyond. So you meet expectations. Here's 3%. Be grateful for it, right?
Or you got your 4 last year, so we have to give someone else a 4 this year.
Exactly. So it pits hardworking team members against each other. So we need to have a good look at our performance management models, I think, and restructure those and not just dictate that from the top down of like talk about what success looks like for everybody
as an individual
at the company. Yeah. Like, why aren't we doing that? It seems like so simple to ask companies to do that. And yet many aren't.
I don't have the answer.
I think, and above and beyond money, right? Like above and beyond the paycheck, there's a theory in psychology called self-determination theory. And people want to feel like they are initiating things in their own work and their own life. They want to feel like they are competent and growing and learning. And they want a sense of relatedness and a feeling that they are helping people. So if we can't always get the dollars and cents there, we can have our team members reflect on those 3 areas so they understand their contribution to the organization and the impact that it's having, whether that's through the product or service that the company is offering or within the team dynamic itself. And I think that's important. We're not taught to reflect in that way. We're taught to say, like, my value is in what I earn and the job title that I hold and my worth to society in that way. But if we can start enabling our team members to reflect on that, regardless of the title that you hold, that's going to inspire them to be more self-led in the workplace and increase what I like to call like your entrepreneurial power.
Have you watched Severance?
Yes.
Yeah, we're not caught up, but there's a lot of it that's like, is this what companies want? Is this what, having a separate work persona, a separate work person from your outside life? Like, what does the TV show Severance say about where we are today as employees and employers?
Yeah. Honestly, it almost feels like a comedy in many respects. I think on one hand, yes, you want there's corporations who want you to be a drone and not ask questions and not challenge the status quo because you have to appease shareholders. That is the society that we've set up. And on the other hand, it really pokes fun at like the hard work that everyone puts in, even when they are separated from themselves, to say like, happy retirement, here's like a watermelon display, right? Like
of your head.
Your service of hard work.
Yeah.
So I think it's pointing out what is happening in current society. I don't think that's where things are going to go. Young people are demanding more and they are not going to settle. They will walk away from their jobs and they will build companies that compete with yours and do better. And what does it say about you as a company if you are not willing to listen to the humans driving your success? Without workers, these companies wouldn't be where they are.
This is the great debate. This is the sticky conversation. This is capitalism, socialism, unions. What do you say to people that when they hear you talk about, oh, CEOs make more, we got to empower workers, the wage gap, all this stuff? What do you say to people that are like, that's socialist, that's anti-capitalist, it's communist?
I don't care about what it's labeled. All of those things are made up. Like our economies, our societies, they were all decided upon at one time. And it is not asking for too much for human beings to be cared for. So if you need to reorganize systems, that's work worth doing. Why wouldn't it be?
Why should companies change? Why should companies think that there aren't more resources, more people to fill the seats that they need?
Maybe now there are, but eventually there won't be. Because if we're not taken care of and we are unhealthy, unwell, then we are not going to show up to perform. Young people are not procreating at the rates that previous generations were. So there are not going to be enough workers eventually, and your business is going to suffer.
Yeah.
And we're not thinking like long-term enough. We're always looking at quarterly profits and not what we are dropping into the soil for future generations after we're gone. And I think that's important, to be within integrity and to say, am I doing the right thing?
I've heard you say that we're alive just like nature is alive.
Mm-hmm.
We as humans, we as individuals are as alive just as nature is.
Mm-hmm.
What is it about nature, or what is it about us being alive that comes into play with our careers?
We go through seasons the same way that nature does. Like, we are not meant to be bearing fruit and producing fruit constantly. We have seasons that we need to rest because, like, when leaves fall from trees, they create conditions in the soil for that new growth to occur, right? So it's a regenerative process. And in our careers, we need to embody those natural cycles to bear fruit, bear money, bear like whatever we want to do over the course of our career. Like, this is not a marathon, or no, this is not a sprint, it's a marathon. I have a lot of career ahead of me. Like, I have to make it sustainable.
How do you know when you're in a season of rest or winter or spring, or, how do you know when you're bearing fruit versus resting.
Track your energy levels for sure. We talk a lot about time management in society, but not enough about energy management. We all have different energy levels based on what our lives and resources look like. So for me, coming out of the 9 to 5 into business, I was like, I'm going to be at my desk for these hours. That's what my body feels familiar with. Come to find out, I don't get a lot done in 8 hours if I'm expecting to be sitting for 8 hours. If I give myself 3 times of focused hours in the afternoon, I can get a lot done. Courtney mentioned this on her podcast of, as a woman, tracking my cycle and understanding that certain times of the month I am going to be more productive and should be on camera versus when I should probably just be doing admin work and toiling away behind the scenes has been a game changer. So I think it's about tracking your energy levels throughout not just each day, but throughout the months and the years. And it's going to fluctuate. And you just have to learn to listen to your body in that way. You're not going to be able to change everything about your day, but you can do, if I have a draining activity, for example, I hate doing my accounting. And the nature of running a business is you have to do bookkeeping and that kind of stuff, especially when you're getting started if you can't outsource that. So to make that more energizing to me, I take a bike ride to a local coffee shop and I have a nice coffee and a croissant and I make that enjoyable. If I have a meeting that I know is going to be draining, I make sure I block out time for a quick walk or jumping jacks or dancing to my favorite song after to bring my energy levels back up. So I think it's treating ourselves like someone we love and understanding what our natural energy patterns are and leaning into that.
Yeah, we have to reward ourselves as we go or make ourselves more apt to complete the work, especially when we're working on our own.
Yeah.
Yeah,
you have to be excited and energized by it. There are hard days, I'm sure, as you know, where you're just like, what am I doing? There are days that I question myself. Most days, I'm like, what am I doing? But I'm just going to keep on going. But yeah, the reward system is important. That dopamine-driven feedback loop of I'm not just going to always move the goalpost further and further out. I'm going to reward myself for a job well done is important.
Yeah, create the environment that's going to give you the most success.
Yeah.
Right. You stand for craftsmanship over consumerism. I say create, don't consume. I think probably along the same lines.
Yeah.
Right. Consume to study, consume to learn, but there's a point at which you need to create.
Yes.
And I also believe consumption is really dopamine hits and distractions.
Yeah.
So what do you mean by creating over consuming or craftsmanship over consumption?
Yeah. So definitely creating more than we're consuming. So in career advice, there's a lot of follow your passion advice. And less than half of people have an identifiable passion. So craftsmanship, in my view, is having an inkling of curiosity, following that curiosity, developing it into skill, strengthening that skill to the point that you reach mastery, and becoming a master at your craft. And that is what elicits the feeling of passion, is showing up in the implementation of the work that you're doing. So like you said, you can read all of the books in the world. You can take all of the courses in the world. Knowledge is power, but applied knowledge is true strength. So we need to get out there and implement, because that's going to give you a lot of feedback a lot faster than just, reading and consuming more. That's actually an act of procrastination. If you think about it, if you're doing it for too long, it's all right, what's the fear that you're not showing up and implementing this? There's a lot, so many good books that I've read, but a lot of them say the same things just in different ways. So it's all right, how do I actually implement this in my own life and show up to do the work is super important. And minimizing distractions when you're doing it. The average person checks their phone, I think, is at 144 times a day. And whenever we task switch like that, we lose 23 minutes of productive time. So we think we're efficient multitaskers. We are not. Be honest with yourself about what distractions you have in your life, how often you're picking up your phone, and create conditions to actually get into that state of flow and follow that curiosity and skill, it doesn't even need to be hours a day or hours a week. Like if you can commit to 10, 15 minutes a day and grow it from there, that like let that be enough for now. But you have to do the implementation part.
Yeah, I wholly believe that if you're just reading and consuming, it is an act of procrastination. And so evaluate if you're a shelf helper. You read the book, you put it up on the shelf, and then you grab another book and you read it and you put it up on the shelf and you never implement the things that you learn.
Yeah.
Or you're the person that goes to conferences, you go to industry events, you buy the course, you take the course, you become very intellectually knowledgeable about it. You're the person at the party that can speak to every little detail about something, but you've never actually done the thing. And that's not a good place to be.
Yeah.
You learn so much more. You have so much more empathy for people when you actually go out and do something for yourself, because you realize how hard everything is.
Yeah.
And how many steps it takes, and how, like, even just in doing this podcast, like every day, every moment, I am like, oh, this is where most people stop. This is where most people stop. This is where most people stop. At every moment, there's problems with the memory cards. There's problems with there are people that would get to a point where they need to edit the episode. They might have recorded a bunch of episodes. They need to edit it. They can't find an editor. They can't figure out themselves. And then they just never do it ever again.
Yeah, it's too hard. I'm going to throw my
Because it
hands
got too hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, it got too hard.
Yeah.
And maybe it wasn't meant for them, but that's like, at least they tried, and that's part of it.
People, when they want to create a new life for themselves, they want certainty. They want certainty that if I take these steps, it is going to be the right thing and I'm going to wind up where I intend to go. And that is not giving ourselves any grace as human beings. We are gonna get it wrong along the way. Like my expectation is that I'm gonna fall flat on my face several times. And who I become in the getting up and keep going, that's what makes accomplishing the goal sweet.
Got to make yourself proud.
Yeah. Otherwise, it's going to be fleeting. You accomplish it great, and then you're off doing the next thing. Like, no, I want to bask in it. Like I'm working on a book proposal right now, and a lot of people will hire ghostwriters or want to write a book in record time to just say that they have a book and have this like credibility out there. I'm like, I actually want to like take my time and sit with my ideas and make sure that it's something that I want to become a writer in the process of writing a book. Who would have thought? I want to learn how to become a speaker and write down my ideas in the process of learning how to become a speaker rather than outsourcing all of my brain power to like ChatGPT. Like I can be a thought partner, but like I want to sit with what my experience and my story has been, because that's what people are going to connect to, not me being a cookie cutter version of everything else that I've seen online or what other people expect me to be. Like I want to enjoy the process as it unfolds, because that's the entire point. Like what is the point if not?
Yeah, and I look back at what we've done in our lives and say there was never a guarantee. Just because I got a job with my degree or whatever, like that, there was no guarantee that was going to happen.
Yeah.
I didn't know anything about anything when I got my job or did this or did that. But we get to a point somewhere in our like late 20s, early 30s where things are pretty solidified. We've gotten comfortable. Maybe we're at the 6-figure mark. Like it's a really dangerous place to be. And this is relative to your cost of living, but it's a really dangerous place to be in the 100 to 200K range, because that's a very comfortable life.
Yeah.
And you can maintain and sustain without really having to challenge or change yourself. You might be piling on debt. You might have 2 car payments. You might have credit card payments, but you're still able to go out and eat some good food and travel to where you want to travel to. But it creates a scenario where it's hard to get motivated to go change and to go become somebody different. But I heard you say just now, when you're talking about writing a book and when you're talking about becoming a speaker, you said, I want to become a writer. I want to become someone who gives speeches. And one of the things that I coach people on is changing your language around what you're doing. You don't say, and you weren't doing this.
I am a speaker.
Exactly.
I am a writer. Yeah.
Yeah. And you
I
weren't
am an artist.
I am an artist.
Yeah.
I am a speaker. And you go and you tell people that.
Yep.
And the universe shifts itself into high gear to go give you what you just said you want.
Yeah.
You're not saying you want it. You said you are it.
Yes.
And then the steps start to become a little bit clearer, a little bit clearer, a little bit clearer.
Yeah. When I first started my business, where I wound up is not at all where I initially intended when I started. And I'm not mad about that at all. I'm growing into different iterations of myself every single day. And like, I'm so excited to meet the version of myself in 10 years, if I'm lucky enough to get that time, right? To say like, what wisdom do you have for me? Like, we continue along this path. What are we doing? Like, what are we doing? I don't think we necessarily need to take all of like the small steps matter, but we can also really like quantum leap into new iterations of ourselves. And I just did that. I am a speaker. I was on the TEDx stage, and I didn't do all the free events in between and like, oh, I need to get more comfortable speaking. I said, I'm going to go for the big stage. I have a message. I'm going to share it, and I am going to be a successful speaker. And I did that. And now I can be a credible speaker and have that open doors that I didn't otherwise have access to.
There's an analogy of what it means to go 10x your vision and accelerate your path by going and being on the TEDx stage versus going, I'm going to go do a bunch of smaller stages first. Mm-hmm. If you are traveling and we're here in New York, we're at this building on Broadway, mm-hmm. and I need to go 1 block over, I'm going to walk. If I need to go downtown, I'm going to go take the train. Mm-hmm. If I need to get to California, I'm going to go fly. Right. The vehicle that you choose is different based on how big and how overarching your goals are.
Yeah.
And so you're either going to walk, you're going to take the train, or you're going to fly. And so you decided to fly into TEDx because when you choose a different size goal, it changes how you can get there. And it actually reduces the amount of options.
Yeah.
You can't walk. I mean, you could, but you can't walk. You're not going to walk or take the train to California. You're going to fly there, right? So it changes the vehicle and it reduces the amount of options that you have when you create a large enough goal for yourself.
Yeah. You collapse time. And I love that. It means I have more time to do other things that I want to do.
Yeah.
Because to use, the money that we make to enjoy life and to invest in the causes that we care about to advance society forward in a meaningful way. I did the same thing with my content creation journey. Is I started out making like awful content of just like showing up and putting in the work. But then I was like, you know what? I want to collapse time. And there's a lot of creators out there who I would aspire to be like, or whose just like energy and presence is like cool. So I want to start to embody more of that. I want to be in the rooms that they are in. So I was just like, I'm going to have the audacity to slide into their DMs and almost like fake it till I made it in the beginning of just another human talking to a human and believing that I have something to say that is of value to them and just build a relationship. And even if there's a no, like they've seen my face, I bypassed the fear. I showed myself that I could feel the fear and do it anyway. And there weren't crazy like consequences to my self-worth or my well-being. And like, I strengthened that fear muscle of like, oh, the fear is always going to be present. If I'm not a little bit afraid or a little bit nervous, then it's either not big enough or I don't care enough about it. It's like even walking into this room, it's like, I'm a little shaky. I'm a little nervous, right? Like, because I care about the work that I do and building good relationships and all of that kind of stuff. So yeah, I think there's something to be said for just aiming big. I would rather aim really high and miss than aim too small and like hit it every time, because I know I'm going to get back up and keep going.
Yeah, those small goals don't grow us.
Yeah.
And the growth is what actually feels good in the end.
Yeah.
Because you went through the journey and you ended the result, and actually the result may or may not be significant once you get there because of who you became along the way. And I know that sounds like a freaking Saturday cartoon special, like it's the friends we made along the way, but reaching out to ask people to be on the podcast is a big challenge for me. Like there's people that it's just like easy peasy, and then there's others like I'm delaying, I'm procrastinating for some reason. I don't know.
Scared of how you are perceived, or
scared of the no.
But then it's also, all right, well, what happens? What's worst case scenario if they say no?
They said no. And there was a big one today. I thought he was going to say yes because he had kind of said yes a week ago. And then he just said no.
Yeah.
But I'm like, okay. I also take it as a challenge.
Right.
So what is going to happen?
Remember me now, so you're going to keep growing when you show up and put in the steps, and then it's going to be a no brainer eventually. I did the same thing. There's creators that, other podcast hosts, I was like, I'm going to be in New York this week and I have like some time if you need any guest spots or you want to grab coffee or like whatever. Some people don't answer. Some people leave me on red. Like some people do answer.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's like, oh, that's cool. And the people who do answer have actually like really helped me just elevate who I am as a person, believe that it's possible. And like when you start talking to them, you realize like they are human too. And they also had this path and they just stayed committed to the showing up and to not taking, like using their nose as a not yet.
Yes. Use your no as a not yet.
Yeah.
And you kind of look like, it's not about blaming yourself. It's about looking like, okay, what would it take? Who do I have to become to get that person, right? If I want to go get Barack Obama,
yeah,
who do I have to become? Or what do I have to go do that?
Yeah.
Bet.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Cool, let's go do it.
Yeah. And it makes you want to like shit your pants a little bit.
Yeah.
But you're like, oh my God, this is all right. Like there's something here that I'm being pulled to do it.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. You coach people on their anti-vision.
Yes.
Right. Their career anti-vision.
Yeah.
What is that?
Yeah. So it's an exercise that I will do with my clients because they know that what they are doing isn't working, but they're not quite sure what else they want to do or where to start. So by starting with your anti-vision, you list out everything that you don't want in your life. And you use that as the basis to define what you do want. So for example, I don't want a boss who micromanages me becomes I do want a boss who gives me autonomy and trust in my ability to do a good job. And when I know that, that's how I can change how I show up in interview processes and navigating what questions that I ask or putting different boundaries into place. Or it could apply to your personal life too. Like I don't want to watch 4 hours of Netflix a night. I do want to take a walk and be in nature at least 30 minutes every single day. Like it just creates that clarity and gives us a more of a pathway to show up and be that person on the day-to-day. Say, okay, well, if I do want to take a 30-minute walk every single day, then I need to prioritize that in my calendar.
That's a good example because, especially with the nature piece, because if someone says, I want to walk in nature for 30 minutes a day, and they don't live anywhere near nature, what do they have to go do?
There's nature all around us, though. We're in New York, right? You can still find nature in Central Park, in the trees, museums that probably have nature exhibits.
Yeah.
Like you can get creative with your walk.
That's a good point. But you're right. You're right. The point that I was making is that the action that's required may be that you move out of your city, your town to go be where you want to be.
Yeah.
And go do what you want to go do.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it could be big like that. I moved from New Jersey, which is gray a lot of the time, to Florida for like palm trees and sunshine. And that was great for just my well-being and my soul. But I think that we can also do it in like small little like microdosed moments throughout our day. If you can find a patch of grass, you can ground your feet in it. If there are birds flying around, you can connect with nature. So you don't necessarily have to be like, well, I can't take walks in nature because I don't live in that area. You can certainly do it. You just have to get creative about how you do it.
If someone listening has built their whole identity around their career and putting their worth into their career, what do you tell them is like the first step that they can take?
This is a really hard question. And I'm thinking back to who I was, because everyone has a different starting point. But what the first step that I would have told myself back then is like, it's okay to give yourself permission to admit that this is not okay, that the way that you feel is not okay. And to create space to grieve something that has played such a huge part in your life, your identity, whether that's like to keep you safe or whatever. That's what I would have told myself. So to just like sit with the fact that maybe what you've been taught isn't totally true and it's okay to want different.
Which is funny because how long are you sober now?
It'll be 2 years this month.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah, over 7 years.
Congrats.
And I didn't do AA, but the first step is acknowledgement.
Yeah.
And it's like, are we addicted to our careers? And do we need to acknowledge that we've got a problem with how we approach our identity around our careers?
Yeah. And one of the biggest things for me too was like, I didn't have enough that I looked forward to outside of work because work was my identity for so long. So what's one small thing that you can do to transition your identity from just being about work to also doing something just for you? Like I write poetry and I share like little inklings on my social media, but it's like, oh, I need enough creativity left over at the end of the day from my work to write in that way. So I am less likely to like pour all of my reserves into my business because doing those things outside of work energizes me makes my cup overflow to give my best in my business and in my work. And when you start to like realize that it's okay and that like things don't collapse and you can give yourself that permission, you're like, oh, okay. I don't have to have my career be my entire identity. It's a big part of it because we spend a lot of our lives working, but I am a lot of other things too. Like I'm an advocate, I am a queer woman, I am a friend, I am a poet, I am like all of like, I'm starting to hike with my sister. Like there are things I'm like, oh, all these different identities that I can grow in. That's so cool. I'm so excited to like experiment and figure out who I am outside of my job title. Like that's so cool.
I think if we all just went and focused on doing the thing that we truly want in this world, it would solve a lot of the world's problems.
I agree.
Because that means that we're all focused on ourselves in the best way.
Yeah.
Doing what we want, which means we're happy, we're fulfilled, we're not focused on others and what others are doing and complaining and comparing and we're just living in our truth. And when we manage our energy that way in only spending time doing the things that light us up and excite us, that just creates more positive energy and more excitement, more abundance. And again, that's like one of the reasons that I started this podcast is because I want people to go find the thing that truly lights them up and that excites them. And that's not just work.
Yeah.
And so I guess final thoughts here for people. What's the thing that young Danielle needed to hear?
That she needed to hear or that I would tell her knowing what I know now?
You can answer however you want.
Young Danielle would need to hear, and what I would tell her is that you are worthy of love and acceptance regardless of how hard you work. Those are innate, and you don't have to work to earn them. The right people will give it to you freely. You don't have to hustle to earn love.
Agreed. You just have to love yourself.
Yes.
Danielle, thank you so much for being here. Where can people get in touch with you?
Thank you so much for having me. And you can find me at danielleroberts.co or on socials at I'm Danielle Roberts.
Yes. And go watch her TEDx talk. It's fantastic. I think it's like 15, 20 minutes.
It's 11 minutes.
11 minutes. Very, very consumable.
Yes.
Lots of great stuff in there. You did a great job. Thank you so much for being here. As always, everybody, I appreciate you. I love you. And this has been For Your Own Good.